I was shocked that you were the author of this article.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because you're so strong. I just look at you as a leader, and you just are rock solid in what you believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about your college experience.
So I pretty much was brought up a Christian my whole life, up until 18. And my mom didn't really worry about me very much. So when I went to college, I was very headstrong, right? I probably gave her so many problems. She was probably so happy that I was out of the house. Get out of here. And so she probably trusted me, and she probably trusted the institution of higher learning. And so when I got to college, I remember it was either a reading or writing class that I had, and I had it with a guy who was very likable. I mean, he looked like a rocker to me, and he was just so cool. And I really looked up to him, and I trusted everything he was saying. And basically the first week out of the gate, he started telling the whole class, God is BS and religion is BS.
What was he teaching?
I think it was just, I don't know the subject. I don't remember the subject, but it was writing. Right. So we were supposed to be taught how to think critically and become great writers and challenge ideas. But with him, he was just so hell-bent that whole semester on basically disparaging Christians and Christianity. And at the time I got there, I say in my article, I was super naive. I was young. I was hungry to learn. My mom and my dad didn't go to college. My mom did maybe some community college. So to me, this was like a whole brand new world. I'm thinking I'm going to learn all these things, and I'm looking up to these professors. And when my professor started basically dismantling my religion, he was very persuasive, and he was very likable, and he seemed like he knew what he was talking about. And so I trusted his intellect. And that semester, by the end of that semester, I was calling myself an atheist, but I didn't. You
had gone from a Christian to an atheist.
In one semester.
Yeah, in one semester. And I remember that was the MySpace days, and my mom was like, "What's this I see on your MySpace about you being an atheist?" Because you could fill out the religious part. Yeah. And I just I don't even remember what I really told her, but it was about 1 or 2 years that I was convinced by this professor that God was BS.
It was interesting because you said, there's a couple things I took out of it. First of all, I'm going to save so much money on tuition. It's incredible how much money I'm not going to spend on college for my kids. But also, you talked about maybe writing this anonymously at first. Why did you think that anonymous was the right way to go? And then eventually you wound up actually putting your name to it.
I think I was ashamed and embarrassed. I think it's one of the biggest regrets that I have, that I so easily denied God. And when I came back to the faith, I struggled a lot because I was like, I denied him so easily. Like, am I going to be accepted again? Am I saved? Does he still love me? And so, and as a conservative and working at the Blaze, who wants to admit that they were fooled and that they liked a liberal and that they believe their ideas?
But we all have been.
Yeah.
We have all been duped. Even when, my age, you can be duped.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard to admit, but you have to. Otherwise you live a life alone, and I think in darkness.
Yep. And that's how I felt. I felt duped, and I felt dumb. I felt really dumb. But then I started thinking about it. These professors are in a position of power and authority, and they wield that over their students instead of. They're basically taking advantage of their intellect, which is so young at that point. You don't really know how to think critically, and your brain isn't fully developed, which I mentioned in the article. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that controls impulse. So when an argument sounds great, you're going to probably buy into it. And that's exactly what I did. And that's why I wanted to write it anonymously until Aaron Collin here at the Blaze, he said, don't do it. Don't write it anonymously. There are probably tons of college kids going through the same thing and sitting where you sat. And it's true because I got tons of messages afterwards.
I bet.
About kids singled out.
Yeah, I mean, it really struck me as something, as I'm ancient compared to you, as something that every parent of faith needs to read, because it's just, I would never think it was that overt. My idea of how, kids go in these crazy directions as they go to college is like, there's peer pressure and you're coming into your own. And yeah, there's this sort of subtle influence of maybe liberalism and maybe atheism throughout these colleges. I never would have thought week one, a professor is saying in front of an entire class, God is BS. Yeah. And explaining that in detail for a semester. That's eye-opening to me.
Yeah.
That's eye-opening.
I will tell you that Hannah went to a Catholic university, Fordham University, and she was taught that the Bible is nonsense and, not sure if Jesus was real and all of this stuff. I mean, that's insanity, and that's at a religious school.
Is it?
Yeah,
is it at a religious school?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Well, they were priests that were Jesuits that were teaching it. So there's your first problem. But it is, when I was walking around CPAC, the people your age that I talked to, they were all saying the same thing. College is a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's just over. You get in, it's over. Yep. We need to start concentrating on the lower grades, and they're already doing that in public school. The left is already doing that. Yep. But we've lost this last generation. What are the people who have written you this weekend said?
I had one girl on Twitter who had a Christian group on campus, and the professor would mock her Christian group, and they would just target them and ridicule them and like hiss at them, anything that they did. And then I had Alexander write to me, the graphic designer here at the Blaze, and said, yeah, I was always targeted and singled out when I tried to argue with my professor about God or religion. And that's fine. Like, I'm not saying don't challenge us, but what I'm saying is at least present all of the explanations for religion. If you're going to talk about atheism, talk about people who are agnostic, talk about Buddhism, talk about Islam, and then just present the evidence and let us decide. Instead, they're just teaching us a conclusion that they've already drawn.